October's energy is all about growth and expansion, and that can be internally as well as external things happening as well. And you might have seen that, whether that's on the TV or through social media, and collectively there's a lot going on energetically. And it's a perfect time for you to come into an alignment with your soul's desires and your manifestations and what you want, as there are big shifts happening this month. It's also a time for expansion in that you're raising your consciousness, you're raising your vibration, whether you're doing that individually or as a collective. And through that, you're able to use the power of your mind to manifest and grow. Grow as it's a period of different energies coming through, eclipses happening this month, and also Mercury going direct again. With growth, there also comes that need to release and to let go and shed things that are no longer serving you or your higher purpose. For example, this week, I've become aware of some random memories just popping up, some intense, some emotional, and some even painful. And sometimes with these memories, there's that intense push and pull going on, and that's okay. And it's a chance for you to accept and acknowledge these, because with growth, and more importantly, to grow spiritually and to grow consciously, and even as humans, it's so important to release these old emotions, to shed whatever's coming up. These past few weeks, and in particular in the coming weeks, you might experience growth in that you might see signs, you might be vibing high, you might be reconnecting with your higher self and coming into your alignment. And then all of a sudden these emotional waves pop up and you can be like, well, hold on for a moment. I thought I was doing okay. And suddenly these waves of emotions are suddenly popping up out of nowhere and you thought you were making progress. But that's what this October energy is bringing with it. And with that, it's that time for you to release so you can have those breakthroughs, for that emotional wave to pass through you. And at that time, it might not make a lot of sense. You might not necessarily be able to pinpoint where this is actually coming from. And at times, when we connect with these emotions, we might feel sad because that event or that situation took place in the first place. Or we might feel sorry for that person that was involved. And that's just you having empathy for that person or that situation. And that's just you feeling empathy for other people. It's like a surreal experience of that emotional wave passing through you. For example, one of the memories that popped up for me was when my grandfather passed away last year, and especially towards the end of his life, he literally lost his voice and couldn't communicate. And for me, that was quite an emotional memory because I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry that he couldn't communicate or say what he wanted to say. And that was an emotion that I kept inside of me, and that's something that I hadn't dealt with. And for you, it doesn't have to be, quite so much of emotional memory. It could be another memory that might pop up for you on how somebody treated you or took advantage of you, or in a relationship where you were controlled and manipulated by the other person. Or perhaps yourself, you find yourself in that situation where you might behaved in a particular way that you don't now find desirable, and you look back at yourself thinking, I wish I didn't do that. And that's okay. That's part of the release. And it's what I've mentioned before in one of my previous videos. It's learning to open your heart and learning to accept yourself fully. And only through that, you're able to release and let go. And that is so important with these October energies that are coming through. Because once you're able to tap into that energy, once you've acknowledged and given yourself permission to do that, you can then bring in the new energies. You can start to manifest and come into alignment with what you want. But once you let it come to the surface, you might cry. You might journal it. You might talk about it. And this is you releasing the past, some of the trauma that you have experienced, some of the things that we have experienced and gone through that were difficult, and in some cases even painful, which we can now release. And even if that memory pops up again, but it will just make it that much easier for you to face and acknowledge it. But even as a collective, as the Earth's consciousness is rising, we're all going through a period, a time of great release. Emotions can be very intense at times. And if you find yourself becoming very emotional and not knowing what to do, or you might witness somebody else becoming very emotional in the sense that they are not yet fully emotionally aware of what they are doing. And as a result of that, as a consequence, they become emotionally reactive. And that's okay, because it's a process, and you need to understand that we're all on our own individual timelines, and that person will get there and you'll get there as well. But that's just something that you have to go through. But we've all been there, and that's before we study, before we learn, before we evolve, before we heal, and before we grow as spiritual beings. We become hostage to our subconscious minds, our feelings and emotions and our thoughts, and that's okay. It's important to accept and acknowledge that. And when you are ready, when you open your heart, you learn to fully accept yourself as a whole individual. That's when you truly embody yourself. And if it's you witnessing somebody else go through that, then just remind yourself of your boundaries. You can excuse yourself of that situation if you don't want to be in that environment. Or you can try and offer some help and guidance. But if that's you that's going through that emotional process, that intense emotion, just let it come through you. Let it flow through you. Don't try and block it off. And it's just a matter of letting it come to the surface, letting it sit with you, and just understanding that emotion and trying to ask yourself what it actually means. Where is it coming from? Is it attached to a situation? Is it attached to a childhood trauma? Is it to do with conditioning or programming, the matrix of society? And it's just giving yourself that time to go inwards for that bit of self-reflection. But to also ask yourself, if you're allowing in that wave of emotion, allowing in that wave of feelings to come through, or are you actually putting up a big wall of resistance? And if you are, why is that? What is it that you're afraid of? What is it that you might unearth? All you're doing in that situation is you're carrying on with the old cycle of the old patterns and repeating that cycle. And it's just a matter of shifting your gears and taking yourself out of that situation, at that scenario, and thinking, okay, I'm going to finally let it come through. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to shut down my tears, my emotions. If you need to cry, then let it out. And it's the way forward to your transformation. So that you can experience more of that inner peace and harmony, it's a great month to focus on that inner peace, as you'll experience a great deal of energetical shifts this month. And once you start to focus more on yourself and letting go of those old beliefs and those habits and those conditions, and in particular those deep-rooted emotions, you'll start to naturally align yourself and start to attract more that positive, vibrant energy, that respect for yourself, that love frequency. And that's when things will start to become a little bit easier. And you'll be able to focus your mind on your growth and on what's really important to you. And decluttering your mind of all the noise and nonsense, of all the stuff that's no longer serving you. And I talk more about on how to declutter your mind in one of my previous videos. Because if you truly think about it, very little is actually needed to make a happy life. It's all to do with your thinking and your perception. Because your happiness is your responsibility. You'll get all the support and the guidance and the signs and the synchronicities from the universe. But it's whether you're truly listening and paying attention and doing and moving in the direction that the universe wants you to do, or are you remaining stagnant and stuck in the old ways, repeating the same cycles and the same old patterns? Because only you are the one who has to walk that path. You have to take that step to make that transformation in your personal journey, and nobody can really do that for you. And when you make that decision, when you take that step, that is when the transformation will happen. That's when you will grow, and that's where the expansion will take place as well. I know from first-hand experience how difficult and painful it can be to experience your emotions by all means, and it's not an easy journey to do. But that doesn't mean we don't work on ourselves. That doesn't mean that we don't grow and expand as human conscious beings. And this will allow you to grow, to gain that wisdom, that insight, and to become aware. And that's what October is all about, as well as shedding those emotions, but it's also to allow those breakthroughs to come through. Remember, October is all about growth and expansion. The only thing is that you have to take that first step. And it's something that you have to do. You have to walk through your own darkness. And it is difficult at first, but it does get easier as you go through the process. And that's why you're here. You're the one that's receiving this message. And it's important to remember that love unites us all and that we're all connected one way or another, because everything is energy. But once you go through that process, that's when things become effortless. That's when breakthroughs actually happen. So that said, my friends, there are blessings in store this month. So keep your mind and your energetic field open to receive. And whatever you may be going through, whatever comes to the surface, let it flow through you. Have a great day. Namaste.